I was taken to a couple different hospitals because my family was really struggling to try to get me to go to a hospital. So like that process, the intake.
Yeah.
During the intake, I was so triggered because during my childhood, when I was first put in a psych hospital at Children's, I'm pretty sure that I was abused there, and I thought that I may have saw someone who was in that psych unit with me, and so I just spazzed, like threatening people, like wouldn't let them do anything, and so they still like took me in, but they over medicated me. So there's just a memory, like I don't have any memory of that time period I was in the hospital because I was just so medicated. Like my brother and dad joke about like me, like them joking with me about escaping, and like I don't remember the conversation at all. And so yeah, so during that, and that was just my second, so all that, then going to PWI. The good thing about PWI is one of the PIW.
Yeah.
One of the fortunate things that happened during that first time was like they wouldn't let me go home without having follow-up care. So like I had to identify a therapist, had to identify a psychiatrist, and so when I got out, there was still a continuation of care. And also PIW as a system is some right? The culture is some trash. However, there was key people there that made the experience a bit more bearable. Specifically, the therapist, whether it's the art therapist, whether it's the social worker, like they made it where I felt like I was seen and heard.
You do a lot of work with kids. Noah, what's your name? You do a lot of outreach, college-wise. And this is another episode of Mental Health Monday. Welcome back, guys. We're here with my boy Noah. Noah, what's up, boy? How you doing? How are you? Host Jordy, how you doing?
Hey, Juice.
Ooh, I wanted this.
She's the one that said, the swag. Tell the people who you are and what it is that you do.
Wow. So, hey, my name is Noah Dyson, and I am the founder and, executive director of The Love Catalyst, a nonprofit that works to bring awareness about the mental health resources in DC, while also working to decrease the stigma or eradicate the stigma and within the Black community. And besides that, that's my passion, pride and joy for the last 10 years. But I currently work in DCPS with elementary school children who have emotional and behavioral disabilities. I'm a big fan of social entrepreneurship and really showing, okay, how can you put people, planet, profit, and never forget that order. And I work with high schoolers in that space. All around, a lover of music, a lover of yapping, and that's a little bit about me.
You got a lot going on.
Oh yeah. I like to stay busy.
Yeah, that pitch was clean. Just want to let you know that pitch was clean.
I tried.
So tell me about your mental health journey.
Ooh.
Was it a good journey? Was it a bad journey?
I think it'd be very easy to say it's bad because there's a lot of pain and trauma that, preceded it, exacerbated it. But at the place that I am now, I can look back and say that it was a journey, a neutral one, where I learned things about myself that I would have never known. I've had experiences that allowed me to then go on and support and help other people. And so overall, it was a journey that had its ups and downs, that had its losses, contained grief, but had moments of joy and love and tranquility. And so, that's if I were to say, I don't know, it's taken a long time to get to this place though, to say that.
Okay.
Can you tell us what your diagnoses are or what you're dealing with?
Yeah, I'll start with my first one. My first one was, I want to say either schizoaffective, and that was in high school. It was some type of diagnosis that was on the spectrum of like schizophrenia. Then that's when leaving the hospital, recognizing that okay, this was a one-off thing. So I left the hospital with the diagnosis of adjustment disorder with anxiety. My mom didn't want me to have that diagnosis of schizophrenia because there's so much stigma that comes behind it, and she was kind of looking in the future of how that would impact me and impact my success and relationships in life. I'm so grateful that she did. And then in college, when I had my first manic episode, that's when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, bipolar 1 disorder, with severe psychosis. So like basically, if my manic episode is severe enough, I can experience hallucinations, mostly auditory. And then more recently, I still have that bipolar diagnosis, but I was given the generalized anxiety disorder as well. So yeah, and that's like within this last year. So those are my diagnoses.
Yeah. What did your first manic episode look like? Like, how did you get to the diagnosis?
Well, it's funny because at that time I was a sophomore in college at Elon University, and I was doing everything. Like, I don't know how I did what I was doing back then versus what I do now, because it sounds like a lot now, but back then it was like triple that. So right, I was a tour guide, I was a RA, I was the vice president of my class, I was taking like 5 courses at one time, I was, working a job, or I already said the jobs, but just really engaged, a part of like 3 different clubs, the Black Student Union being one of them, in a relationship or a situationship, and just the toll and the stress that came from all of these things just culminated in me just. Also, the weird part is, not the weird part, but the truthful part is that public facing, I was someone who's always promoted peace, love, and positivity from like Logic's album. And so for me, that's what I was outwardly presenting. Then that's in my own inner life, not feeling as confident, feeling very insecure, dealing with young women who I wasn't treating with respect and care. And so I think the combination of all the stress of those things, then also living this double-sided life, something just broke. And I was like really like prideful as well back then. I still a little arrogant. I'll say arrogant. And so I think I was just humbled, and there was just one day, it was during like, I remember it was during like GHO and A&T, so my school was like 30 minutes from A&T. It was GHO weekend.
What's GHO?
Oh, greatest homecoming on earth.
Oh.
So, yeah.
I was about to ask that same question. I was
What? Y'all
like,
never
this
heard of
GHO,
GHO?
this
What?
GHO you speak of.
Yeah, nah. Oh, I see now. No, it's just, the greatest homecoming on earth. And so, like, if you're from North Carolina, you know that, like, A&T, they go real big for their homecoming. And so, and it's at HBCU. So, my school was a PWI. So, I'm always there. I had homeboys from DC who went there. So, whenever I wanted to have a good time, that's where I was. And so during that GHO weekend, I think that was 2018. Yeah, I think it was 2018. I just started showing a lot of erratic behavior, talking about this large goal of becoming a millionaire, and I was going to be one by the end of this year. Being very like emotional all over the place with people, like getting to like, not physical altercations, but verbal altercations with folks. A lot of sporadic energy, a lot of risk-taking behavior, so like driving recklessly. Just really energetic, a lot of ideas in my head, but like not having enough time to really get them all down. Only sleeping like 2 hours a night, but still having like so much energy. Yeah, so
He
that's
was really on the edge.
Oh yeah, but that's like textbook mania though, you know. And so at that time, I never knew what mania was.
Yeah.
But you know, looking back, like it was very much textbook.
Yeah.
Did you ever have examples of it running in your family?
So you know, I didn't find out this until like last summer. But my dad, who has struggled with substance abuse all my life. When he was about 17, there used to be a hospital in DC called St. Elizabeth. It was like the main mental health hospital, and he was like hospitalized there and given the diagnosis of like bipolar as well. And so just thinking about that, it's just like, you know, and during that time, I can't remember, I don't know if that's the 70s, 60s, you know, I mean, 70s, 80s, you know, growing up. During that time, you know, mental health and the crack cocaine epidemic, you know, he fell. He didn't have the same support that I did. Yeah. And so, I know he's had some, and of course with the drug addiction and substance abuse. And I've seen just the shift in my dad's mood. Like but then again, like with the dual diagnosis or the comorbid diagnosis of the drug addiction, like it's hard to know if it's the drugs that's impacting the mood or if it's the possibly bipolar. And then that's some depression been on my dad's side. You know, just we're a black family. We're 3 generations in DC. Got roots in Mississippi on my mom's side, and so. Yeah, we're very very blackety black, you know, like with the trauma, incarceration, drug addiction, single mom, you know, like what cool thing is, you know, even with that, being in DC and my mom spotting opportunities at a very young age, she was able to jump on a lot of things that like didn't cause us to have like a really solid foundation. So like getting a government job when she did, buying a house when houses were a little bit less expensive, right? At her age of like 30, I'm not 30 years old, you know? So like, even though, we have all that, you know, what we think of as the common American black experience, but then also having a really like relatively like comfortable background, at least like economically, a safety net there that like some peers don't have, you know.
I mean, it sounds like you guys are slowly but surely breaking the family curses. Like, I mean, your mom made the moves that she did. You're making the moves that you're making to get help and medication and treatment for your mental illness, and so that's big. I mean, that takes a lot of intention and strength and insight. So kudos to you.
I appreciate that, but I really can't take. I don't feel like I can take that much credit, honestly, because I've had good examples. So like, I'm the middle child, right? And so I have an older brother, and my older brother, he had his struggles, but he's modeled like to always strive for, you know, improvement, right? Don't be satisfied with the way things are, or like with the way you are, right? Always pursue personal growth, being better, and you know, it's just. No, we've had a love-hate relationship at times, but and more recently, just recognizing the sacrifices he's made, and my mom too. But like, mom is a little different, you know. But my brother, being able to sit down and have conversations with them, and recognize that like how far he's come in his own personal journey. We're first generation college, right? So he was the first one to graduate college. He found a way to graduate college without having to take out take out loans, right? And that's how I was like, okay, I can't cause mom to like pay for college, so I gotta find a way to get my college paid for too if I want to go to college, you know. And our mom made it clear like, you can't just sit around and do nothing once you graduate high school. So my brother really set an example, and him like advocating for me, like even when I was going through my mental health stuff, because he was in college learning about special education and mental health when he was in school, when I went through my first mental health crisis. And so him and my mom just really really rallying behind me. And that's kind of where the idea of the love catalyst came from, was this idea of the only way to heal is for those around you to sacrifice their ego, their pride, their resources, their time, in order to support you to get to that place of healing, right? And there is the personal responsibility that I have, but sometimes when you're going through a crisis, how much can you really help yourself, right? So you need your love catalyst. You need a love catalyst. You need a community.
Are you saying catalyst?
Catalyst, yeah. I mumble a little bit, but little right here, the catalyst.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
It's the arrow, and so. Just like without them, without just my community that exists even outside of just my immediate family, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be here today, Yeah.
So you bring up the mental health emergency quite often. At what point did you realize it was a mental health emergency, or did your family let you know, oh, you're down bad and you need our help?
I'll talk about like bipolar. So for that, those closest to me recognized that something was off. Like when you're in mania, like there's only been one time where I've been able to catch mania before it escalated. Because for me, it's about, I start off experiencing symptoms maybe on Monday, then by Friday it's full blown. And if I'm not in the hospital, I can really hurt myself or others. And so when my behavior shift and like I'm not conscious of it, I'm just be like, oh, I just have all the energy in the world. I'm amazing. I'm so creative. I can do all things, right? I can do all the things. And like, it feels so good that like, you just like fall deeper and deeper into it. And so it's really hard for me to be like, oh, things are going crazy, I need help. The only time I have been able to do so is when George Floyd was murdered. And I remember I was working in school over the summer, and there was a lot of videos flying around about on social media with his murder, and I swear to you, I only watched like 30 seconds of it, and I knew there was a flip, a switch that was flipped in my brain, and I was like, I called, because at that point I've already had 2 manic episodes, and so I had created a safety plan, and so I had shared my safety plan with my managers at my job. I called them. I was like, hey, I need to initiate the safety plan. I need to get to the hospital. Something's going to happen. And so that's the only time I've been able to catch it, or be aware that something was happening. But before, in my other experiences, I wasn't able to.
What was your treatment journey like? So like, did you have to switch medications? Did you have to do medication first and then get a therapist?
Yeah.
What are you doing now?
So I'm really happy you asked this question, because I don't think that talking about like your organization and like this idea of awareness, like people either think 2 things about medication. One, that I want to become addicted to it, or at least within the Black community, I want to become addicted to it, and I'm not going to be able to like, live my life without it. Or 2, like it's going to be this one pill is going to solve all my problems, and neither are accurate, right? And so for me, coming from that place of stigma, where it's like I didn't want to be addicted to the medication because of my experience with my dad, it was like I was really, and my family also just wasn't aware that like I needed medication. So like the first manic episode, I was on medication because like when you're hospitalized, they give you medication, but after I got out the hospital, I was feeling so depressed and like so heavy, like there was something weighing on my shoulders. I just stopped taking it.
You remember the name of that one?
I want to say it was Abilify. Yeah, and so just feeling that, I was just like, yeah, I had to stop. Like I didn't know how I couldn't. It was unbearable for me, and so got off the medication, did do therapy. I I went to a therapist. It was an older black man. He's probably like 60 something. I swear he used to fall asleep in our sessions.
Oh, wow.
I promise you, this man, cool. I ain't going. It was a black-owned counseling place. I'm not going to shout out the name, but it wasn't the best experience. And I was like, what's the point in coming here? Because like, y'all, I don't feel like this is helping. I'm getting better. So I stopped that. And so there was just like 5 months where I was just raw dogging life. And then, I'm sorry, that's a wild phrase. My bad. Whoa, I forgot where I was. No, but like, it's a funny thing.
We told you to be yourself.
Nah. And so, I wasn't taking any medication or in therapy, and there was like a summer of 2019. I was trying to prepare to go back to school. I was working an internship. That I was also working a job. I was like hanging really late up with friends because I'm DC. Friends are home from college during the summer, and so like I'm living life. And then that's when, boom, like the symptoms started hitting me again. And this is my second manic episode. This is when it became real to me and my family about like, this isn't a one-off thing. This is serious. I need more support, because that manic episode, I was arrested. I was arrested, and it was just so scary for my mom and my brother, because it's like, because the arrest was at a very public event, where the mayor was at. And so then like them not having the communication about, okay, which police station I'm at, where they're taking me, and just like, and even for me, it was a traumatizing time, and that's why like I was so triggered by George Floyd, because during my arrest, I was slammed to the ground, knee placed on my neck, knee placed on my back, thinking that like I'm gonna get tortured or killed, and so yeah, that's when it was like, yo, we gotta take this shit seriously. And that's when I'll shout out this hospital, because it's a horrible hospital, and I need people to know that it's horrible. No?
PIW.
Yes. You already know. Fucking horrible ass hospital. Nah, both leaning in. Alright, go ahead and say it. Bro, fucking horrible hospital. And so I was taken there. I was taken to a couple of different hospitals. Because my family was really struggling to try to get me to go to a hospital. So like, there was one, we went to church on Sunday. So I was arrested on Saturday, released later that day. And then on Sunday morning, like went to church. Like I remember it was my mom driving, someone sitting, my dad maybe sitting in the front seat. Then I saw my brother and my uncle. My uncle got on the right side, my brother got on the left side, and they like made me in the middle, and they drove me to Washington Hospital Center. I think my experience there was bad too, because I was like during the what is it called when they like check you into the hospital? What's that process called? The intake. Yeah. During the intake, I was so triggered because during my childhood, when I was first put in a psych hospital at Children's, I'm pretty sure that I was abused there, and I thought that I may have saw someone who was in that psych unit with me, and so I just spazzed, like threatening people, like wouldn't let them do anything, and so they still like took me in, but they over medicated me. So there's just a memory, like I don't have any memory of that time period I was in the hospital, because I was just so medicated. Like my brother and dad joke about like me, like them joking with me about escaping, and like I don't remember the conversation at all. And so yeah, so during that, and that was just my second, so all that, then going to PWI. The good thing about PWI is One of the
PIW. Yeah.
One of the fortunate things that happened during that first time was like they wouldn't let me go home without having follow-up care. Mm-hmm. So like I had to identify a therapist, had to identify a psychiatrist, and so when I got out, there was still a continuation of care, and also PIW as a system is some shit, right? The culture is some trash. However, there was key people there that made the experience a bit more bearable. Specifically, the therapist, whether it's the art therapist, whether it's the social worker, like they made it where I felt like I was seen and heard. But in terms of like the psychiatrist on the unit, a white guy, think he knew everything, didn't listen to me, and just like the way it was managed, the space, who they like put in the rooms, it's just that is what was negative about it. Where was I going with this? Okay, so the continuation of care. I was connected to an outside therapist and psychiatrist, and so that's when was like, okay, I need to be on some type of medication. But even within finding a psychiatrist, with the medication I was on, and me being consistent at times, I still had a manic episode. So I was like, okay, this medication isn't fully working, so let's try something else, right?
What was the name of that one?
So I think that's when I was given risperidone, and at first I was given lithium while I was in PIW. But when my psychiatrist found out that I had lithium has such negative side effects, he was like, okay, I'm going to take you off that and give you risperidone and lamotrigine. Lamental is another name for it. Yeah. And so Lamental, though, the way my psychiatrist described it to me, Lamental is something that almost specifically targets the depression. Because like after I got out of the hospital, I experienced severe depression. So it gave me risperidone, which is, for more so the psychosis side of things. Right. And then that's the Lamotrigine for the bipolar, but specifically targeting depression. So, however, I still had a manic episode. So that's that manic episode happened. I was like, it was bad. It happened. Then another like year came around. Okay, so I think that was my third one. Yeah. So the third one, I was still on the mental. Then that's when the fourth one happened. I was like, yo, we gotta do something different, because I ain't keep about to. My life is like legit tearing apart, exploding, and I don't know how many times I can try to put the pieces together again afterwards.
Rebuild, yeah.
And so that fourth time I was like, bro, because at that point, after the manic episode of the third time, he then took me off Lamotrigine and put me on Depakote. And the Depakote is supposed to target the mania. So right, he's going back and forth with this Lamotrigine and Depakote, and it's just like, bro, okay, if one targets depression, one targets mania, why don't you just let me take both at the same time?
Did he say why?
He was saying that they're going to cancel each other out pretty much. I'm like, I don't know. Let's fucking try it. I asked a bunch of times. Then he finally, after that fourth manic episode, he was like, all right, we'll do it.
And that was the magic?
That was the magic. And I haven't had a severe manic or depressive episode since. But that was a matter of like 3 years.
But it's been 3 years since your last episode,
yeah,
right?
Since
that's good.
Since 2021 or 20, I think maybe since either 2020 or 2021.
Yeah.
From the doctor's perspective, what would you say the concern is with medicines canceling each other when it comes to figuring out a good balance for a patient?
Yeah, well, that's outside my wheelhouse because I'm a pediatrician, but he's the expert. If he says they're canceling each other out, he's probably trying to find the right ratio, so to speak. And so it just takes time. And every medicine doesn't affect everybody the same way. Yeah. And so he's really just trying to figure out what works best for you.
But here's the thing, right? So I just got a new psychiatrist last year.
Congrats.
Thank you. And so the guy who I've been working with, who I had to beg to put me on both, he just explained that it's going to cancel each other out, and that's it, right? And that was his reasoning. There wasn't this background information describing the why. And he was a nurse practitioner of psychiatry.
The guy that wasn't listening to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Versus now I have like an actual psychiatrist.
MD.
Right? And so he explained, no, it doesn't work like that. That they don't cancel each other out, right? That they're both mood stabilizers, and no mood stabilizer is going to like cause the manic or depressive episode, right? It's about filling in like where those chemicals are missing, right? And so Bill was like, my nurse practitioner didn't know what the fuck he was talking about.
Yeah, so just like, if you have a choice, I would say always go for MD. And I'm not biased, but the nurse practitioner can do the same thing that a medical doctor can do with like half the training.
Yeah.
And so they're obviously not going to have the same expertise or understanding of like the things that they're prescribing or the illnesses that they're treating.
Yeah, and I definitely can attest to that.
The other thing too is like medications are prescribed based on your insurance coverage sometimes. And so like while there might be a superior medication that's going to work perfectly for your symptoms, your insurance is going to be like, yeah, no, we're not covering that. So that makes it challenging too.
Yeah, how much does insurance play its part in the process?
What'd you say?
How much does insurance play its part in the process of getting
That's
help?
like the main thing. Like I can know all the answers, but if you can't afford it and the insurance is not going to pay for it, then
you're stuck.
Yeah.
When it came to the emergency plan that you mentioned with your job before enacting it, what made you come up with an emergency plan?
I think like the therapist I was working with may have like encouraged that I make one, because at that point I had already had 2 manic episodes, and it's like, okay, how can I prevent the damage that I do in my life before getting the help that I need? Right? And if I say it goes from Monday with me experiencing the first symptoms at a lower capacity versus Friday being full blown, right? How can I stop it by like Tuesday, Wednesday, right? Or get into the hospital by Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So I'm not fully blown, just out here in the world, right? And so being told to do the safety plan was like, okay, it makes sense. So on that safety plan, I have my emergency contact information. I have my medication preferences. I have which hospital I would prefer to go to and 2 backup options. I then have a list of like the type of symptoms to look out for. What else do I have?
And this is what you share with people in the process?
Yeah, this is what, like, my mom has one, you know. I don't share it as often as I do now because I recognize some people shouldn't have access to it because they can weaponize it against me. And so knowing who to trust. So, like, I trusted the people at my job, right? To, like, I'm working with you. You should probably know in the event that, like, also, it was my university. It was working in res life. And so the way they're taught to work with the student employees already have like this trauma-informed mental health backing behind it, right? So like I knew that they could follow through on it, right? And they did. They did an amazing job. I'm grateful. I'm really grateful for them. And so that's what the safety plan is.
When it comes to your experience of building trust with people, your family, they already did a great job of building trust. But when it came to trusting others, was there ever a time that you look back and you thought to yourself, all right, I can trust this person now at this point in our relationship in case an emergency happens? Because I know building that outside trust is a little bit harder than just the people that you already grow up with.
Funny story, actually. I didn't really feel like I can trust my family. Right? Even despite what they have done in the past for me, the difference between me experiencing my crisis in high school versus in college with bipolar, for me, the way I describe having a manic episode is like, imagine you had an alter ego, and when this alter ego only comes out when you need protection, right? And so, and that protection is really something that reminds you of previous trauma, right? And so, when I get manic, if I'm reminded of past trauma that I've had in life, that's when I become aggressive. That's when I become more emotional. And so with my family, unfortunately, family can be big sources of trauma or just, hardship in life. And so while manic, it's hard for me to interact with my family. Very difficult. And that's what I learned from my last manic episode, was like my safety plan relied heavily on like my family. And one of the things I put in the safety plan was like, whenever I got manic, I posted a lot on social media, sharing views and things that weren't articulated very well or should not have been posted in such a public forum. And so,
can we call that the Kanye West effect?
Yes.
Okay.
No, truly. Oh my God. Have you listened to his Ye album?
Yes.
Yeah, right. And that spoke to a part of my soul that very few albums have, because they don't get like the allure of Mania, but also just how it damages as well.
Yeah.
Like it feels so good in the moment, but you do so much damage that you then have to come back and be like, how do I fix this? Some stuff is unfixable, really. And so one of the things with my family was like, put on my safety plan to take all my devices. But think about it. If you love to post on social media when you're manic, and your brother who you already felt like tries to control you all your life, or your mom who like just don't ever understood you, you're like, oh, these are my enemies. So you get hostile, or I got hostile towards them, right? And so, and that was even more of a contentious part, and so with that happening, in my follow-up safety plan, I have it where my best friend of 10 years, he's the first guest I ever had on my podcast. I relied very heavily on him to be there and to be a liaison, to take me to the hospital and do things. Sometimes, and he's the only other person really that I've trusted in DC besides my family to help me. And honestly, talk about that, like, I really struggle with trusting people. I don't think people are aware of that because I'm so like loving towards people and so vulnerable with people. They think, oh, like, yeah, this is my friend Noah, right? And versus me is like, I don't know if you're my friend, because I don't know if I get manic and I say some hurtful shit to you, if you gonna still be around afterwards, right? Or you see me, the worst parts of me that I don't let people see in a public forum. How are you gonna stick around? Because you build up this one image of me in your head, and it's due to me because I curated that image for you, because I try to stay in this one box of myself, right? And so, like, it's very hard for me to trust people because it's like I've had so many people, especially with Mania, with bipolar, where it's like, whether it was a romantic relationship or friends who, like, once they see all the anger that I hold down, or the chaoticness of my life, the anxiety, like, they're like, I don't want any parts of this anymore. So I haven't built a community of people that I trust to support me in the manic episode. So like, I don't know what I would do. I really don't know what I would do if my best friend isn't there or my family's not there.
Yeah.
I don't have no one where I'd be like, I trust you to be able to help me in this moment of crisis.
Yeah.
So on the other side, like after you're recovered from your mania, how accountable and like apologetic are you to the people that you hurt during that time?
So for me, I take responsibility. It's just, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Once I recognize I've hurt you, because I feel very deeply and I'm very empathetic, like once I can identify and I know and you've expressed to me that I hurt you, or even if I go back to myself and be like, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that, I immediately want to make it right. And so I've hurt people, I've done things, and it's hard to immediately want to address the pain, because after mania is depression. And the depression is basically me reliving and beating myself up for all the things I've done. And there is no room for forgiveness in that place, for making it right. It's just, you deserve to be punished. You should die. You should, just all this. So it's like, I have to get over that as well to then be able to be like, hey, like, I'm sorry, right? And so, yeah, I've hurt some people.
How long does that cycle take for you to go through mania, then depression, and then back
So
to
mania can last for me maybe like a good 3 weeks, because what happens is it's the mania, then it's like maybe like another week of hypomania, and then it's like after that week goes to, it's like severe depression, and that severe depression may last for like a month, 2-3 months, and like I don't think people recognize that like my baseline is depression and anxiety. So it's like I have to. Oh wait.
No, keep going.
Oh yeah, I have to. Like for me, it's I have to fight to constantly stay positive and to stay. That's just my default. That's how I learn how to cope. Make jokes, be silly, like try to think about all the ways I could possibly hurt someone and try not to do those things, right? So they don't have a negative reaction towards me. And so, yeah, the accountability looks like me apologizing, trying to contact them. Some people, they don't want any contact from you. Right?
Yeah, because after 3
you.
or 4 months, it's like, I mean,
It's a hell of a marathon.
right.
But even then, it's like as soon as it happens, it's like this
Cold cut.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like, so me then getting to a place where it's like, okay, I want to reach out and apologize. It's like I don't have access to you any longer. I also don't. I also like, then there's some people who say like, oh, you're good, you're forgiven, but the relationship never goes back to what it once was. There's always this coldness there. Yeah.
Because people are fighting their own triggers and traumas, right? So if you say the one thing that their mom used to always say to them, like, it's hard to come back from that.
I've said some hurtful shit. I've gone in on people. I've gone in on my own mother, right? And
do you think she holds that against you?
No, because I think she doesn't hold it against me because one, she's my mom, she loves me, but two, I think she also recognizes that like the source of it too, right? Because for me, when I was young, like I'm not someone who got like violent, right, or aggressive or mean. I held a lot of that in, or if I did, it was very like passive aggressive, right? But like I held a lot of my emotions in. And so when I got manic and it was like emboldened and I didn't have this fear of like hurting people or I didn't have this like where it was in the back of my head that, oh, this may hurt somebody or like this is just how I feel, I want to get off my chest. And then it's like I said all the things that I may have always wanted to say to my mom that she may have already felt, but she knows I suppressed it. And so it's just like, it's coming out now, right? And so for her, she loves me, she's my mom, but also it's like she always knew some of it was already there.
Yeah.
What do you think were the key differences in your experience between mania versus hypermania or hypomania?
Yeah. So with mania, there is no control. There is no ability to reason. Or like if I do reason, like to me it makes sense, but to the rest of the world, there's no possible way for it to make sense. But for hypomania, there's a little bit more of like control there and a little bit more reason. And it's just not as like in your face, right? So for example, mania is me I'm trying not to expose, I'm trying to figure out how much to expose about myself. Mania can look like all the mania was is like extreme scenarios, right? The hypomania looks more like
So like you were saying before your first one, you were getting into verbal altercations with people. That was like your mania. How would it look with hypomania?
Like I would consider that hypomania.
Oh, that was
so like
hypomania.
that was the beginning.
You're in control of what you were doing.
Yeah. The hypomania looks like the mania looks like. All right, so the reason I got arrested was because I interrupted a mayor's memorial service, right, in DC, and I really believed that I was a prophet and I was meant to speak to the people, right?
That's usually the grandeur.
Yeah, the grandiosity, a little bit of the like psychosis, a bit like I'm meant to speak to these people, so I have to speak, and no one's gonna stop me, right?
Yeah.
That's the mania. The hypomania looks like, oh, I have this idea for a new business, right? So I'm going to work really, really hard to make this business, right, in a matter of a week. That's the hypomania. Like it can be like really focused energy. It can be more talkative than usual. It can be still making sense a little bit.
Okay. This is fascinating to me personally because I think when we first met was at the men's healing circle that I do with Neil, right? And that was a room full of men who I think 90% of the room had been diagnosed with bipolar.
Yeah.
And that was the first time you guys all heard that. It was like 7 to 9 of us, if I'm not mistaken. And my
Did
guy.
you say 90% of the room was bipolar?
Yes.
90% of the room was diagnosed like bipolar. And there were two things that I walked away from that experience. Number one, you guys in general have never been in that experience where the room can relate to what you guys have gone through. And then B, seeing that representation of how many different various lives of people it affected, and for us to all have that general conversation. Because that was new to me, hearing it from everybody. And I remember thinking to myself, because Peter's story is very similar to yours, especially the grandeur part, the getting arrested, the family pulling up. But what I noticed in your story, which is real important compared to Peter's story, is you actually had a safety plan. As you noticed things were falling apart, you started talking to your doctors and making lists of things that and information you thought people should have, which I remember in his experience, which he just came out of graduating also, because you guys also graduated around the same time. He just had to finish school, and there was a time he was just in the hospital. His parents pulled up, and they had to come get him, take him back home, go back. And sometimes I hear in your story, especially, how those guardrails really got you to the finish line, but also understanding there may be people who aren't for me, and how important that is to keep in mind. I may lose a lot of relationships, and that does lead to it being much harder to trust people. I think you've done an amazing job. I know this may not be easy to hear, but I think you're doing a great job in not only realizing who you are, but also I think you should be able to give yourself credit a little bit for certain things. Because not a lot of folks make it out of your story. I know it's hard, take your time, but it's just like, you know, This is like, our fourth time having to talk, and I'm just like, there's certain things that you've told me, and I'm just like, no, it's okay to give yourself credit as you go through your experience, bro.
Yeah.
Did your anxiety grow out of the repeated fallout every time you had a manic episode?
No, I think the anxiety has always been there a bit. Because the anxiety comes from this, like, always trying to mediate people's responses, right? So it's like growing up in an environment where it's like once a person gets angry, it's like all hell breaks loose, right? And so now I'm trying to account for, if I say this or if I do this, then this person's gonna react like this, but like if I say it this way, then this person may react this way. And so it's like, and now I'm in front of a crowd with a whole bunch of people, and now I have to think about this person may, and so it just becomes overwhelming. But also it's like, even with like close personal relationships, it then becomes like I can't be present,
right?
Because I'm so consumed with how I'm coming across, or like I'm trying to like guess what they're gonna say before they even say it. So I'm not even listening to the actual question that they're saying. And so I'm like trying to think 5 steps ahead, and it's like, nigga, you gotta be present, because that's not, you're wrong, right? So I really love the movie Inside Out too.
Yeah,
because I think it did a great job at like explaining that like anxiety is really just fear, and like in your attempt to like guess and predict the future, you're it's a false reality. And like you have to, like, the only way to do that is to try to find a way to ground yourself and center yourself, which I'm still, it's hard because like it's a coping mechanism, and it's one that may have served me in the past, but it no longer serves me as an adult. And trying to let go of that has been really difficult, because I'm still, there's still so much in this world that reminds me of why I needed it. But like, I'm an adult now, I can protect myself. Like, I'm a black guy, there's a little weight on me. Like, no one's about to really punk me, but in my head, it feels so close to being punked that like I have to, like, I just kind of like get into my own head,
Yeah. Everything you just said about like trying to control situations by what you say and how you react to things is exactly how I am. And it just was brought to my attention that I'm an anxious person. I never would have thought I was an anxious person, but my therapist pointed out that I control things in situations so that I don't have to be anxious. And that's why in Inside Out too, when I think the part where she's like, where the core belief is like, I'm not good enough. Like that really hit me in my soul. Like I start crying every time I hear that part, because that's where the anxiety comes from for me, I think. It
does, Same here. This idea of like, of not being enough. Like I have to work to earn people's love. And so I was just talking to my mom. What was I talking? We've had many conversations about this, but it's just, that's real. Like I'm not enough, so I have to be perfect.
Right. Yeah, and that's a lot of weight to carry. It's exhausting.
It is. It is.
When it comes to, there was a part that you said about your mom that was really important to your story. She knew that you used to keep a lot of things in. Have you come to a point in your life that you're able to let things out, like frustrations or like built up anger? Have you gotten to that point yet?
No. And the reason I say no is because I'm either going to be quiet or it's going to come out aggressive. And I hate to be aggressive, so I just be quiet, right? Because I feel it a lot, right? But I'm afraid of myself. I'm afraid to let the emotions go, because if I let them go, I don't know how they're going to come out, because I don't have practice with letting them out in a controlled way. And so I just be quiet, And especially now being an adult and working my first professional job, it's like I'm discontent with a lot, or I don't like a lot that I see. And now I have to be fake to let it go. And it's like, so it's like, I've already done this all my life. I don't like it. I don't want to be in a space where I have to do this just to not have to experience drama, right? And so for me, no, I don't, I still haven't acquired that skill yet.
Yeah, that's something I had to learn. I found though, like if I say things in the moment, that makes it dissolve kind of immediately. Like if like let's say a frustration at work is that the supporting staff is not doing their job. I will say out loud, like, nobody's doing their job. Like, this is really holding me back. And whether you agree with it or not, I've said it, you know where I'm coming from, there's no misunderstanding. So you might be surprised and somebody else might actually say, yeah, you're right. This is holding you back and we need to fix it. So like, I know it's easier said than done, but calling it out in the moment might go a long way. Yeah.
Even if it's just putting it out there.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. It's hard.
It's hard and it's scary.
Yeah. Plus, I'm working with kids, right? So, like, kids are with me 100%.
Don't go off on the kids.
So, no, it's not. No, it's not about going off on the kid, but it's like, if I want to address an adult and the kids are right there and they're present, like, I can't say what I want to say because the kids are right there, especially the kids that we work with. Like, they're very in tune with people, right? So if they see that there's something a mix with me and my coworkers in the classroom, like it'd be like they can spot the like that there's breaking, they can try to take advantage of it in some way, right? And so like it's been a time and a half. I'm still working out the kinks. Maybe don't put this in because I'm still working this job, but
we don't know where you work.
What would you say are 2 pieces of advice for someone that's gone through an experience similar to yours, as someone who's bipolar?
2 pieces of advice. Accept that it's going to get worse before it gets better. Unless you're one of the lucky few where you find what works for you immediately. But in most cases, it's going to suck for a little bit. And give yourself grace. And recognize it's going to suck and that's okay. Because if you're not struggling, you're not learning. Right? And so, like, allow it to suck, right? Don't beat yourself up because it's not your fault. This is the journey, you know, of healing, right? It's messy. If you get cut, you're not supposed to just immediately put a Band-Aid on it. No, you throw some peroxide on that thing and it stings. It hurts. But in the end, it doesn't get infected. You don't have to keep going back to try to fix it because you took care of it the first time, because you did all the nasty, grimy work to clean it out. Right? And so that's what it looks like. So accept that it's going to get worse before it gets better. The second thing is find a way to get out your emotions. Right? So
Express, you mean?
Yes.
Express your emotions.
And I would say do that in the form of creation. Create. Whatever art, right? Create. Express. Because there's freedom in it. There's freedom in writing a poem that, even though it may not make sense to no one else, but you pushed out all the insecurity, all the fear, all the hate, all the love, all the whatever, and now it's out there, right? It's not as heavy of a weight, right? And so I would say find a way, your way of just letting it out, right? If that looks like going to a rage room and letting it out, beautiful. If it looks like you fucking burning something, right? And you just writing a letter and burning it, right? Just letting it fall in some water, do it. If it looks like painting, if it looks like, I don't know, whatever that expression needs to be for you to be able to let go, do it. So that's what I would say.
Don't burn down any buildings, though.
Yeah. No, nothing illegal. My bad.
No buildings.
Yeah, nothing illegal. Right, something that's constructive. Yeah, I'm not advocating for crimes.
What's one piece of advice you would give to family and friends who are supporting somebody with bipolar disorder?
My first piece of advice would be to listen to my podcast, which is the Love Catalyst Zone. You can listen to it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And like the goal of that is the Love Catalyst, your community, right? You could walk this journey alone, but it will take you longer. It'll be a little bit more tougher and challenging. So allow people to help who have proven to you that they have the capacity to do so.
This is for the family and friends.
Okay. Right? So for family and friends, first you have to identify, do I have the capacity? Am I willing? Can I not take things personal? That's the first thing you have to identify. Can I take this person spitting in my face and not wanting to punch them? Can I do that? If you can't do that, find someone else, find a professional, right? That's number one. Number two is, okay, how can I become aware of what this diagnosis is and what's the symptoms behind it so I can recognize and spot it with some form of treatment, right, that I can encourage, right? And two is becoming aware of the resources, right? So calling knowing the suicide hotline number, knowing the DC crisis hotline, right? Knowing the MPD's unit to handle mental health crises, knowing the nearest hospital, right? Developing a safety plan, right? Making sure you're aware of that. And the third thing would be self-care. Being a caregiver takes a lot of energy, it's hard. It's been hard for my mom and my brother and my family to support me during this. So you have to find a way for you to release, for you to refuel, to take care of yourself, right? There's no point of you trying to save me, you kill yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that was my 3 bits of advice.
I think that was great advice. Where can the people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Noah_D_TLC. You can follow my podcast account, which is the Love Catalyst Zone, or my nonprofit's page, which is the Love Catalyst. Also, you can go to our website at thelovecatalyst.org. That's about it, I think.
Does TLC stand for Tender Loving Care?
No, it's just funny how that works out. TLC stands for the Love Catalyst. Okay. But I always like how TLC is also Tender Loving Care.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's dope. All right, well, this has been another episode of Mental Health Monday. Appreciate everybody for pulling up. Like, subscribe.
Share and comment. Let's give it up for Noah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there you go. Appreciate y'all for pulling up. Peace.